So almost everyone has a very positive perception of our firefighters and all of our emergency personnel. They fight fires. They go into buildings and retrieve survivors. They go into wrecked automobiles and save lives, oftentimes burning automobiles. They help injured victims that have been in car accidents on our streets. They're rescuing cats and dogs from trees. And quite honestly, recently we've really seen how busy they have been on our streets here in our community, saving lives with Narcan for those that are in the process of overdosing from opioid abuse. We've even seen them deliver babies. These are our heroes, so let there be no doubt about how we feel about our firefighters and our first responders. We all have a positive perception about our emergency personnel. Our citizens, every single one of us, we trust our firefighters. There's also been a very deep sense of bonding in this brotherhood and common sense of purpose that is well rooted in these men and women because they experience this common sense of fighting fires. Thank you so much. I don't think any one of us will ever forget the pictures that we still hold today from the 9/11 tragedy that was one of the most enduring, that will always stay with us, and that is of those firefighters that rushed forward facing danger and risking their own lives to help those in need. And that's probably why this particular event and those events that occurred on Friday, September 8th, 2017, at the City of Miami Fire Department, particularly Station 12 in Allapattah, was such a shocking disappointment for so many of us. These events have led to the filing of criminal charges against 4 former City of Miami firemen. But before I go into the details of those charges, I want to introduce a number of individuals, important individuals, that are here with me today and to whom I'm very grateful that they have come to stand together to say that what we witness in this case is not going to be tolerated in our community. I first want to start with, to my right, Lieutenant Robert Webster. He is the actual victim in this case. And to his right is his beautiful wife, Vicki Webster. She's also a victim, and her children were a victim of this case. Thank you very much for being here. And more importantly, as I said to them before we began here with you all today, thank you for your courage to move forward and to stay with the case. That doesn't always happen, so we not only feel for you, but we admire you both. Thank you very much. Also with me, I need to really recognize one of the assistant state attorneys. You all know in the media, when you cover our stories, that it's always about the people behind the scenes that make these cases happen. And in this particular case, I want to recognize Assistant State Attorney Dennis Siegel. Dennis is here, standing next to this handsome gentleman. He's the one with the files. That's a clue that he's our Assistant State Attorney that worked very tenaciously, Dennis, on this case. He is one of our most valued members of our hate crimes unit, and I've thanked him professionally, privately, and I want to thank him publicly for a job well done. Thank you, Dennis, very much. Also, to my left here is Reuben Roberts. I believe he's the president, is his title, of the Miami-Dade branch of the NAACP. I can speak firsthand that Mr. Roberts does an extraordinary job for this community, and he's always fighting for what they believe is right and asking those of us that try to right wrongs to be held accountable and to step up to the plate and do what we think is right. And so I thank you very much for being here today. And he also was one of the enthusiasts that encouraged the Websters, as Mr. Webster told us, and Lieutenant Webster told us earlier, to follow through with this case. Also, we have Roxy Williams, who's standing right to my back here. She is also, I think, with the NAACP. And directly behind me is Christopher Benjamin. who's also with the NAACP. These other fine gentlemen that you see standing around us are from the Professional Black Firefighters Association, who I just actually met a few minutes ago, but they're here to show their support for this case and for their lieutenant, of course. So let us go backwards now for just a moment to Friday night, September 8th, 2017. You all may remember Hurricane Irma was fast approaching South Florida. Everyone was on high alert, and we were all preparing for it. While that was occurring, there were conversations among a number of our firefighters that began to focus somewhat on Lieutenant Robert Webster. It seems that Lieutenant Webster has always prided himself as a very by-the-book individual. Well, he apparently had left some of his family photographs out after his A shift in the sleeping area that is shared with the B shift. Now, that particular place was shared with Lieutenant Alejandro Sessi. We're told that apparently this sort of violated some unwritten rules about amongst the firefighters themselves as to where they would leave some of their personal property. According to witness statements, Lieutenant Sessi initiated the idea that these family photographs that were belonging to Lieutenant Webster should be brought from the sleeping quarters to the patio, and that phallic symbols, particularly penises, be drawn on them to show displeasure. If I could now just ask Ed Griffith to step over here for a second. Excuse me, gentlemen. So, with the permission of Mrs. Webster and Lieutenant Webster, I'm reminding all of you that these are the photographs. You can see the photographs have been somewhat obscured, obfuscated, camouflaged for obvious reasons. These are the Webster's family members, and in one of them, I believe, there may have actually been some children involved. But the important piece is, these are his personal photographs in these quarters, and you can see the phallic symbols that have been drawn on each one of them. So, Lieutenant Sessi, when he left the patio after trying to cajole the other firefighters, which, by the way, initially did meet with some resistance, but his cajoling apparently persisted, according to the testimony, and convinced the firefighters to do this. So Lieutenant Sessi left the patio, and he returned a little later with three of those three family photographs that I just showed you. They were framed, that belonged to the Websters, with some pens. After continued cajoling, as I said, by Lieutenant Sessi, the firefighters Harold Santana, Kevin Mezosas, and Justin Rumbaugh each allegedly drew the phallic symbols on the photographs that I just showed you, which had been removed at the time from their frames. The photographs were subsequently placed back into their frames and returned to the quarters. The next day, Saturday, September 9th, 2017, a Miami Beach fire lieutenant who was being brought over to the mainland was being housed also in Station 12 because of the possible arrival of, not possible, as you all remember, it did arrive, the arrival of Hurricane Irma, and he was directed to go sleep in the unoccupied quarters shared by Lieutenant Webster and Lieutenant Sessi. He noticed the phallic symbol drawings on two of Lieutenant Webster's family photographs, but he didn't notice anything else, and that becomes relevant in just a moment. The next day, on September 10th, 2017, Lieutenant Webster went to his quarters at night, and he found an additional item, a noose, that was draped over the defaced photographs. Once that noose was discovered on Lieutenant Webster's photographs, an investigation began, which led us to where we are today. Shortly after that investigation, we learned the firefighters met. They met at Kevin Mendoza's house, a meeting which was attended by Mendoza's, Lieutenant Ceci, firefighter David Rivera, and Lieutenant Robert Cernuda. There was a general agreement during the meeting that, yes, truthful information should be provided to the investigators, fortunately. But according to the sworn testimony, Lieutenant Ceci requested that no one mention to the investigators that he was the one that brought the photographs to the patio. Lieutenant Cernuda provided sworn testimony that he did not recall Lieutenant Ceci, by the way, making such a request. So based on this testimony, we are announcing criminal charges that arose out of this incident involving 4 individual former firefighters. Lieutenant Alejandro Ceci is being charged with 1 count of tampering with witness, which is just what I just described to you at that meeting. This is a 3rd-degree felony. 1 count of petty theft, which is the taking of the property belonging to Lieutenant Webster, and 3 counts of criminal mischief as a principal, someone who encouraged others to do it. The other firefighters, former firefighters Harold Santana, Kevin Mendoza, and Justin Rumbaugh, are each charged with 1 count of criminal mischief, which is a 2nd-degree misdemeanor. Now, let me add at this point, which is why I went through some of the description about how Lieutenant Webster prides himself on being a man by the book. I mention this because there was no evidence that was uncovered that Lieutenant Ceci or any of the others were motivated to deface the photographs as a result of racial prejudice. Rather, it was being motivated for the reasons that I just described. And that is that the speculation that was uncovered, by the way, there was also no direct testimony as to who was actually responsible for placing that noose over the photographs, that time on Sunday. Because as I described, there were people coming and going, but as to the noose, no one had any useful information. Now, on a hate crime issue, which is why I talked about racial motivation or any other kind of motivation under our enhanced, it's not a crime of and of itself, it just enhances the underlying crime. As I said, we were not able to get any testimony that would allow us to utilize that enhancement. Lieutenant Webster and I have discussed that at length, and he understands it, and I'm sure he will be open to any questions you may have. And I've also discussed that with the president of the NAACP. I mean, had there been, then we would have. We do file hate crimes, as all of you know. Just in this particular case, there was no evidence to support that. Let's see. What else? On a larger scale, I guess I would just like to add that in the process of doing this investigation, there was sort of a sad reality that emerged about a reputation. And this is really unfortunate because as I began this press conference, we talked about these heroes, many that are here and many that aren't with us today. And they are our heroes. But in this particular case, unfortunately, we have learned and been told by many of those in the fire department itself that there existed this culture, particularly in Station 12, it seems, where this was a common practice of drawing phallic symbols on objects as a practical joke or to display some kind of displeasure. And I'm very happy to see that the chief, he's fairly new, fire chief, Zaraban, who I did speak with yesterday, he was going to try to join us today, but unfortunately couldn't make it. He's taken strong steps to end this very boorish and callous behavior. As I previously mentioned at the onset of this press conference, we never want just a handful of bad actors to in any way detract from the professionalism of our city Miami Fire Department. They deserve our absolute pride and joy. And we're not going to let a handful of folks detract, because they were involved in boorish, callous behavior, detract at all from the better good of what this wonderful brotherhood of these special public servants do. In this case, we'd like to think that it was different. Okay, we're having audio problems. Somebody want to help me to see how I can help? George? Are people in the media having audio issues, or is it just us? Oh, you all are. Is it me? Okay. A battery issue. Okay. Would you like me to roll back, or do you think you have enough? Do you have enough? I'm trying to think what important pieces might be missing. Just did what? Fixed it?
She twisted the base. It wasn't screwed in properly.
Oh, okay. Lieutenant Webster, our hero today, he just solved the problem.